The giant crystal halls of the Galactic Council station were filled with strange alien voices talking loudly and fast. The blue-skinned Altarians waved their forearms in the air, while the bug-like Zephyrians clicked their sharp teeth together. The floating gas beings from Nephros glowed bright red with worry and fear. But something was very wrong today. Something that had never happened before in 50 long years. The human seats were completely empty. Not just one or two seats, but every single chair where humans usually sat was vacant. The polished metal nameplate still read Ambassador Tae Min, Kim Director, So Young Choi Trade Representative Jin Woo Nam, and dozens of other human names. But the people were gone. Chancellor Vex Tar from Altaria stood up on his long blue legs. His forearms shook as he pointed at the empty human section. "Where are they?" He shouted loud enough for everyone to hear. His voice echoed through the massive hall, making other aliens turn their heads to look. The insect creatures from Zephyr Prime made nervous clicking sounds with their mouthparts. They had been expecting to discuss a big trade deal about rare metals today. The humans were supposed to help translate between different alien languages, like they always did. High Counselor Thel floated in the air near the ceiling. His gas body flickered between purple and orange colors, which meant he was very confused and scared. "The humans never miss council meetings," he said in his whispery. "Do say they have come to every single session for 50 years. Why would they stop now? 3 days ago, everything seemed normal and peaceful." Ambassador Tae Min Kim had been walking through the station corridors talking to different alien representatives. He smiled and shook hands or claws or tentacles with everyone. He solved a small fight between two trader groups and helped plan a new mining operation director. So Young Choi had been working in the engineering section fixing communication problems. Between species who spoke in completely different ways, she was always busy helping aliens understand each other better. Trade Representative Jin Woo Nam had been in meetings about shipping routes and cargo schedules. Human ships carried goods between hundreds of different worlds and kept the galactic economy running smoothly. But then something changed overnight. Human colonies across 12 different star systems went completely dark. Their cities still had lights, and their people were still there, but they stopped talking to anyone outside their worlds. The big communication towers that sent messages across space were turned off, not broken or damaged, just switched off like someone had pressed a button. The massive human trade ships that everyone depended on stopped coming to alien ports. These huge vessels usually arrived every few days carrying food, medicine, technology, and thousands of other important things. Now the docking bays sat empty and quiet. Most shocking of all, the entire planet Earth had gone silent. The blue and green world that humans called home had always been busy with radio signals and communication beams shooting out to every corner of the galaxy. Now there was nothing. The alien council members tried everything they could think of. First, they sent polite messages asking if humans needed help or if something was wrong. The messages went into space, but no answers came back. Then they sent their fastest ships to human worlds, hoping to talk to someone in person. The ships arrived at human colonies and cities, but found closed doors and empty meeting halls. Human guards stood at the entrances, but they would not talk or let anyone inside. They just shook their heads and pointed away. Chancellor Vex Tar offered rare Altarian crystals that could power entire cities for years. He sent the most beautiful gems his people had ever found, but they were returned without even being opened. The Zephyrians tried offering their best military protection. They promised to send their strongest warriors to guard human worlds from any danger. But the humans sent back a simple message that said, "No thank you." The gas beings from Nephros offered to share their secret knowledge about traveling faster than light speed. This was information they had never given to anyone before. But again, the humans said no without explaining why. Some aliens began to panic and make wild guesses about what was happening. Maybe the humans were sick with some terrible disease. Maybe their computers had broken down. Maybe they were being attacked by unknown enemies. But deep space scanners showed that human worlds were actually doing very well. Their cities were growing larger. Their farms were producing more food than ever, and their factories were working perfectly. Ships moved between human colonies, but they avoided all contact with alien vessels. On the planet Earth, far below the busy cities, in a secret underground room beneath the capital city of Seoul, 3 important humans sat around a metal table. The room had no windows and thick walls that blocked all signals from getting in or out. Ambassador Tai Min Kim looked exactly the same as always, with his neat black hair and calm dark eyes. But now, he wore simple civilian clothes instead of his fancy diplomatic uniform. He watched dozens of screens showing alien ships gathering near the edges of human space. The ships were flying in confused patterns like lost birds trying to find their way. Home alien captains kept sending the same messages over and over, asking humans to please respond, asking what was wrong, asking how they could help. President Hai Jin Park sat across from Tai Min. Her long black hair was pulled back and she wore a simple gray suit instead of the colorful robes she used for state ceremonies. She had been the leader of Earth for 8 years, but no alien had ever seen her look this serious and determined. Next to her sat General Dong-Woo Lee in his green military uniform without any of the medals or decorations he usually wore. His strong hands were folded on the table, and his face showed no emotion at all. He had spent 30 years learning about alien military forces, and now all that knowledge was finally being used. Phase 1 is complete, Tai Min said in a quiet voice that showed no excitement or worry. They are starting to realize what they have lost. The 3 humans had been planning this moment for almost 10 years. They had slowly and carefully prepared their people for the day when they would cut all contact with the galactic community. It was not a decision made in anger or fear, but a calculated move to change everything. President Park touched a button on the table and more screens appeared showing alien news broadcasts. Panic was spreading through alien worlds as they realized humans were not coming back. Alien leaders were calling emergency meetings trying to figure out what to do. Some aliens were already blaming each other for somehow offending the humans. Others were suggesting that maybe humans had found new alien friends somewhere else and did not need the old galactic community anymore. But none of them understood the real truth. For 50 years, humans had been treated like helpful servants instead of equal partners in the galaxy. They solved problems, fixed conflicts, and kept peace between different species, but they were never given real respect or power in making important decisions. Now the galaxy was about to learn just how much they really needed humanity. The silent treatment had begun. 7 days passed since the humans disappeared, and something terrible was happening across the galaxy. The massive alien civilizations that had ruled space for thousands of years were falling apart like broken toys. The first signs appeared on Draconia, Prime, the homeworld of the proud dragon-like Draconian Empire. Admiral Corvin stood in his command center, looking at reports that made his scaled hands shake with fear. The numbers on his screen showed a crisis that threatened his entire species' food. Supplies were running dangerously low across all Draconian worlds. The dragon people were strong warriors who had conquered dozens of planets, but they had never been good at growing their own food. For 50 years, human cargo ships had brought them fresh vegetables, grains, and protein from agricultural worlds. Now those ships were gone. The Draconians had massive warships that could destroy entire fleets, but those same ships sat useless in space docks while Draconian families went hungry. Their proud military commanders found themselves begging alien traders for basic food supplies. Admiral Corvin tried everything he could think of. He sent messages to Earth offering military protection, trade agreements, and even ancient Draconian battle secrets that had been guarded for centuries. But the messages disappeared into empty space without any response. "We can give them our strongest ships," he told his advisors during an emergency meeting. "We can teach them our best fighting techniques. We can make them partners in our empire." But still no answers came back from human space. The situation was even worse on the crystal cities of Alteria Prime. Chancellor Vextar walked through streets that were growing darker each day. The beautiful towers that had glowed with blue light for thousands of years were starting to shut down one by one. Alterian technology was famous throughout the galaxy for being the most advanced ever created. Their computers could think faster than any organic brain, and their energy systems could power entire solar systems. But all of that meant nothing now. The quantum crystals that powered their civilization came from deep space, mines that only human crews knew how to operate. The crystals were incredibly dangerous to extract because they existed in multiple dimensions at the same time. Only human miners had the strange ability to work safely with such materials. Without new crystals, the Altarian cities began failing. Power grids, collapsed transportation, systems stopped working, and even their most basic machines went silent. The blue-skinned people who had always looked down on other species as primitive were now living like their ancestors did thousands of years ago. Chancellor Vextar called emergency meetings with his science council. "We must find new sources," he demanded, pounding his 4 fists on the metal table. "We are the most intelligent species in the galaxy. We can solve this problem," but the scientists shook their heads sadly. The quantum extraction process requires intuitive thinking patterns that only humans possess, they explained. "Our logical minds cannot adapt to the multidimensional nature of the crystals. We built our entire civilization on human mining without realizing it." The Chancellor offered to share Altarian technology secrets that had never been given to any other species. Advanced computer designs, energy weapons that could cut through planets, and medical devices that could extend life for centuries. All of these were promised to humans in exchange for just one shipment of quantum crystals, but the humans remained silent. The problems spread like a disease throughout galactic civilization. The Zephyrian hive worlds discovered that their communication networks were failing. Without human-built relay stations, their billions of insect workers could not coordinate their activities. The Zephyrians lived in massive underground cities, where every individual had a specific job that helped the whole colony survive. But their society only worked if everyone could talk to each other instantly. When the communication systems broke down, chaos began. Worker bugs started building in the wrong places. Soldier bugs could not find the enemies they were supposed to fight, and the queen bugs lost contact with their egg-laying chambers. Entire hive cities ground to a halt as millions of insects wandered around confused and lost. Queen Zektar sent desperate messages to human space offering to share the secrets of hive mind technology. This was knowledge that could allow other species to think and work together like a single massive brain. But again, there was no response from the humans. Even the mysterious gas beings of Nephros found themselves in trouble. Their advanced civilization floated through space in great cloud cities that moved between stars. But these cities needed special navigation equipment to avoid dangerous cosmic storms. Human engineers had designed and built most of the navigation systems used by floating alien cities. The equipment was incredibly complex because it had to predict the movement of gas clouds, energy fields, and gravitational waves all at the same time. Without human technicians to maintain the systems, Nephros cities began drifting off course. Several cloud communities had already been lost in space storms that they could not avoid. Their glowing forms were scattered across empty space like dying stars. High Counselor Thel and flickered between different colors. As he tried to contact Earth, "We will give you the secret of matter to energy conversion," he promised in his whispering voice. "You can have unlimited power for your entire species." But the silence continued. The galactic stock markets crashed as alien investors realized how dependent their civilizations had become on human services. Prices for basic goods went up by hundreds of times overnight. Alien governments declared states of emergency, and some worlds began fighting each other over the dough. Few remaining resources on the industrial planet of New Busan Engineer. So Young Choi stood at the window of an abandoned human embassy building, watching long lines of alien representatives waiting outside. They carried gifts, precious metals, advanced technologies, and desperate written pleas. The aliens held signs written in human language begging for help. Some had traveled for weeks across space just to stand outside the empty building, hoping that somehow a human would appear and listen to their problems. So Young smiled as she watched a group of Altarian diplomats trying to stack rare crystals in neat piles near the embassy door. They left boxes of their most precious possessions, then waited for hours hoping someone would come outside. "Let them wait," she told her engineering team that was hidden in the building. "We spent 50 years being treated like servants while they acted like our masters. Now they can learn what it feels like to be ignored." Her team nodded as they watched more aliens arrive every hour. The proud species that had once commanded humans around like employees were now begging for attention outside empty buildings. The galactic economy was collapsing faster than anyone had imagined. Alien civilizations that had seemed incredibly powerful and independent were revealed to be completely dependent on human support. Everything from food production to military technology to basic communication systems had human components that were now missing. Some alien worlds began forming alliances with each other, trying to replace human services with their own species. But they quickly discovered that none of them had the knowledge, skills, or resources to fill the gap that humans had left behind. The galaxy was learning a hard lesson about taking their most valuable partners for granted, and the lesson was just beginning. 3 weeks had passed since humanity vanished from galactic politics, and now the worst fears of alien civilizations were coming true. The fragile peace that had lasted for decades was breaking apart as old enemies remembered their hatred for each other. The first shots were fired between the Zephyrian hive fleets and the Altarian crystal ships near the contested mining system of Kepler-7. Both species had claimed the same asteroid fields for generations, but human diplomats had always kept them from fighting, now with no human peacekeepers to stop them. The two great powers launched their most advanced warships at each other. The space around Kepler-7 filled with energy beams, missile explosions, and the wreckage of destroyed vessels. But something went horribly wrong for both sides. General Zentor commanded the Draconian war fleet from his flagship, the mighty Dragonclaw. He had been preparing to help his Zephyrian allies against the Altarians when his weapons officer brought him terrible news: "Sir, the targeting computers are not working properly." The young officer reported with fear in his voice. 80% of our weapon systems show errors and failures. General Zentor felt his blood turn cold as he stared at the diagnostic reports. Every major weapon system on every Draconian ship was malfunctioning. The plasma cannons could not lock onto targets. The missile guidance systems were giving random directions, and the shield generators were overloading. "How is this possible?" he demanded. "We built these ships in our own shipyards using our own technology." But as his engineers investigated deeper, they discovered a shocking truth. Hidden deep inside every weapon system were tiny human-made computer chips. These quantum processors handled the most complex calculations needed for space combat. They were so small and well integrated that the Draconians had forgotten they were even there. The human company Neural Dynamics had sold these chips to alien militaries for decades, claiming they were just simple computing devices. But now, without human maintenance codes and software updates, the chips were shutting down one by one. The Altarians were having the same problem Chancellor Vextar received. Panicked reports from his fleet commanders. Their beautiful crystal ships could barely move in straight lines, let alone fight battles. The advanced targeting systems that made Altarian weapons so deadly depended on human-designed algorithms. These mathematical formulas could predict where enemy ships would be several seconds in the future, allowing for incredibly accurate shots. But the algorithms were locked behind human security codes. Without access to the updates and modifications that human programmers sent every month, the Altarian weapons were shooting at empty space while enemy ships moved safely away. Even worse, the communication systems that allowed different alien ships to work together as fleets were failing. The universal translation protocols had been developed by human linguists who understood how different alien languages worked. Now Zephyrian commanders could not talk to their own pilots. Altarian captains were giving orders that their crews could not understand, and Draconian admirals were receiving battle reports that made no sense. The situation became a complete disaster when the robotic synthetic collective decided this was their perfect chance to expand their territory. The machine beings had been slowly growing their empire for centuries, but human hackers had always stopped them from taking over too many. World cyber specialist Jinwoo Nam had led a secret team of human computer experts who planted hidden programs inside synthetic networks. These programs acted like invisible guards that prevented the machines from building too many factories or creating too many robot soldiers. With Jinwoo and his team gone, the synthetic machines began expanding faster than ever before. Their factory world started producing millions of new robots while their war computers calculated the best ways to conquer organic civilizations. Admiral Corvin watched in horror as synthetic fleets moved toward Draconian border worlds. His ships could not fight properly because of the computer failures, and now an even more dangerous enemy was approaching. "We are defenseless," he told his staff officers. "Our weapons do not work. Our communications are broken, and our enemies know it. The humans have left us, completely vulnerable." The Altarians tried to use their most advanced artificial intelligence systems to replace the missing human components, but they quickly discovered that human thinking patterns were impossible to copy. Their logical alien minds could not replicate the creative intuitive processes that humans used. Zephyrian scientists attempted to modify their hive mind technology to control weapon systems directly, but the collective consciousness that worked so well for organizing insect workers was too slow and inflexible for fast-moving space battles. The gas beings of Nephros offered to share their matter manipulation abilities to create new weapon systems, but their technology was designed for peaceful purposes and could not be adapted for warfare quickly enough. Across the galaxy, alien military forces that had seemed incredibly powerful just weeks ago were revealed to be hollow shells. Almost every major weapon system, computer network, and communication device contained hidden human components. The aliens had built their entire military security on human technology and human knowledge without realizing it. They had thought they were using human companies as simple suppliers, but actually they had made themselves completely dependent on human expertise on Mars in a hidden command bunker. General Dongwu Li smiled as he watched alien fleets stumbling around space, like blind animals trying to fight. He had spent decades secretly inserting human technology into alien military systems, knowing that someday this moment would come. "They built their armies on our backs," he told his intelligence officers. "Now they are learning what happens when you take your most important ally for granted." The general touched a control panel and new information appeared on the screens around him. Every major alien military base was monitored by human spy satellites. Every fleet movement was tracked by human sensors, and every secret weapon project was known to human intelligence. The aliens had no idea how thoroughly they had been observed and analyzed. For 50 years they had treated humans as junior partners, while humans quietly studied every weakness in their defenses. Now those weaknesses were being exposed. As alien civilizations discovered they could not protect themselves without human help, their mighty empires were crumbling under the weight of their own dependence. The galaxy was learning that military power meant nothing if you could not use it effectively. And without human support, the greatest alien war machines in history had become expensive pieces of useless metal floating in space. The lesson was becoming clear to everyone who paid attention. The species they had dismissed as helpful servants had actually been the invisible foundation holding their entire civilization together. And now that foundation was gone. As alien civilizations continued falling apart, the remaining members of the Galactic Council launched the largest investigation in galactic history. They sent their best spies, detectives, and intelligence agents to every corner of space looking for any trace of human leadership. The operation was led by investigator Thel, and of the Nephros, whose gas form could slip through the smallest spaces and remain invisible for days. His assignment was to infiltrate human colonies and discover why they had abandoned galactic society. Thelen spent 3 weeks drifting through the streets of New Sol on the human world of Kepler Prime. He expected to find cities in chaos, populations struggling without galactic trade, and people demanding their leaders make contact with alien governments. Instead, he found something that terrified him. The human cities were thriving better than they ever had before. The streets were clean and busy with people going about their daily lives. Markets were full. Fresh food factories were producing goods at full capacity, and children played in parks that sparkled with health and happiness. Most shocking of all, the humans seemed completely unconcerned about being cut off from the galaxy. They talked about local events, planned community festivals, and discussed new construction projects as if nothing had changed. Thelen listened to conversations in cafes and shops, waiting to hear complaints about missing alien products or fears about isolation. But the humans talked about how nice it was to have quieter space lanes and how much they enjoyed not having to deal with complicated galactic politics. "These people are not suffering at all," he reported to the emergency council session. His gas form flickered with confusion and growing fear. "They have everything they need, and they seem happier without us than they ever were with us." The investigation revealed even more disturbing facts. Human colonies across 12 star systems were completely self-sufficient. Unlike other species who specialized in one or two industries, humans had built redundant systems for everything. Every human world could produce its own food, using advanced agricultural techniques that required no imports. Every colony had manufacturing facilities that could create everything from simple tools to complex spacecraft. And each settlement had closed-loop recycling systems that meant they never ran out of raw materials. Intelligence Chief Vulcan of the Draconians uncovered the most shocking truth of all. The humans had been preparing for this moment for years. While alien governments thought humans were dependent junior partners, humanity had actually been quietly building the most independent civilization in galactic history. Human colonies had been slowly moving their most important facilities away from alien oversight. They relocated research centers, manufacturing plants, and government offices to remote systems that aliens rarely visited. They trained their people to live and work without any galactic trade. They built massive storage facilities filled with supplies that could last for decades, and they created secret communication networks that used quantum entanglement technology to bypass all alien monitoring systems. The investigators discovered that every favor humans had done for alien civilizations had actually been a learning opportunity. Human diplomats had studied alien psychology to understand how different species thought and made decisions. Human engineers working on alien projects had secretly mapped every important system and identified critical weaknesses. Human traders had carefully analyzed galactic supply chains to understand exactly what each species needed. To survive, human scientists collaborating with alien researchers had quietly learned the secrets of every major technology while sharing only limited knowledge in return. "We have been completely outplayed," Vulcan reported to the Draconian High Command. "The species we thought we were teaching and guiding has actually been studying us like laboratory animals. They know everything about our civilizations, while we know almost nothing about theirs." The alien investigators realized they had fundamentally misunderstood what humanity represented. The young species that joined the galactic community 50 years ago had never been seeking protection or guidance. They had been gathering intelligence and preparing for independence. Human colonies that aliens thought were small and vulnerable were actually fortress worlds that could defend themselves against any attack. Human trade ships that seemed to depend on alien ports were actually mapping military positions and resource locations. Even human diplomats who appeared so eager to please had been carefully manipulating galactic politics to prevent any single alien species from becoming too powerful. They had maintained the balance of power not to serve alien interests, but to protect human expansion. The most frightening discovery came when the investigators tried to find the current location of human leadership. Every major human government facility had been moved to unknown locations, leaving behind only empty buildings and automated systems. President Hyejin Park had vanished from her official residence on Earth, leaving no trace of where she had gone. Ambassador Tae Min Kim had disappeared from his diplomatic quarters, along with his entire staff, and General Dong Wu Li had evacuated his military headquarters without revealing his new command post. The aliens realized that they had no idea where human leaders were hiding or how to contact them. Even their most advanced sensor technology could not locate the new human government centers on Luna Base hidden deep beneath the moon surface. Intelligence Director Yoon Seo Kim smiled as she read reports from human agents still embedded in alien governments. Her people had infiltrated every major alien organization decades ago and were now providing detailed information about alien desperate attempts to find human leadership. "They are starting to understand," she told Ambassador Tae Min over a secure quantum communication channel. "But they still do not comprehend the full scope of what we have accomplished." The ambassador nodded as he reviewed intelligence reports from across the galaxy. Alien civilizations were not just struggling with economic and military problems, they were beginning to realize that humans had been the invisible hand guiding galactic civilization for decades. Every major peace treaty had been secretly influenced by human negotiators. Every important trade agreement had been shaped by human economic advisors, and every technological advancement had included human contributions that were much more significant than anyone had realized. The investigation had revealed the truth that terrified alien leaders more than economic collapse or military weakness. Humanity had never been a junior partner in galactic civilization. They had been the senior partner disguised as helpful servants. While aliens had been congratulating themselves on civilizing and guiding humanity, the humans had actually been slowly and quietly taking control of everything that mattered. They had made themselves indispensable while remaining invisible. Now that they had withdrawn, alien civilizations were discovering that they had been living in a house built by human architects, maintained by human engineers, and protected by human security systems. The hunt for human leaders continued, but with each passing day it became more obvious that the investigators were not hunting an escaped subordinate. They were trying to find the true rulers of galactic civilization, and those rulers were only revealing themselves when they chose to. 6 weeks after humanity disappeared from galactic politics, every alien civilization was in crisis. The economic collapse had spread to even the most remote worlds. Military systems remained crippled, and the desperate search for human leaders had found nothing but empty buildings and silence. Then, without warning, every communication screen in the galaxy activated at exactly the same moment. President Hyjin Park appeared on displays in alien government buildings, military command centers, trading posts, and even small family homes across hundreds of worlds. Her calm face and steady voice reached every corner of galactic civilization simultaneously. For 50 years, humanity has served this galaxy faithfully. She began speaking in clear, simple words that alien translation systems could easily understand. We have prevented wars, solved countless crises, and shared our knowledge freely with all species. Her image was broadcast from hidden transmitters that aliens had never detected, using quantum communication technology that bypassed every known monitoring system. The signal was so powerful and well-coordinated that no alien government could block or interrupt it. In return for our service, you have treated us as useful servants, rather than equal partners, she continued. You have dismissed our concerns, ignored our contributions, and assumed we would always be available to solve your problems whenever you needed us. On the draconian homeworld, Admiral Corvin watched the broadcast with growing dread as President Park began listing specific examples of how humans had been mistreated. Human proposals for improved trade routes were rejected by the Council until Altarian representatives presented the exact same ideas 6 months later. She said calmly, human colonies received the weakest military protection during pirate raids because alien fleets were always assigned to protect alien worlds first. The president continued with more examples. Human traders faced unfair taxes and inspection requirements that did not apply to alien merchants. Human scientists were excluded from the most important research projects, and human diplomats were never consulted about major policy decisions that affected the entire galaxy. Chancellor Fex Tar felt his forearms trembling as he realized how accurately the human leader was describing decades of casual discrimination that aliens had never even noticed. They had treated human contributions as expected duties rather than valuable gifts. Human peacekeepers died protecting alien colonies while alien military commanders took credit for the victories. She said human engineers designed the systems that keep your civilizations running, but alien corporations claimed ownership of the patents. The broadcast showed detailed records of every slight insult and unfair treatment that humans had endured. The evidence was overwhelming and undeniable, proving that the galactic community had systematically undervalued their most important members. We are not your employees, President Park declared with quiet dignity. We are not your safety net or your emergency repair service. We are an independent civilization that chooses its own path and makes its own decisions about who deserves our cooperation. The alien leaders watching the broadcast began to understand the true scope of their mistake. They had treated the most capable species in the galaxy like junior assistants while building their entire civilization on human expertise. You want our cooperation in the future, you must treat us as complete equals, she continued. The president then announced humanity-specific terms for rejoining galactic society. Equal representation in all council decisions meant that humans would have the same voting power as any other major species. Fair trade agreements meant that human merchants would receive the same treatment as alien traders. Respect for human sovereignty meant that no alien government could interfere with human internal affairs, and most importantly, a formal apology from every alien civilization for decades of condescending treatment. Some alien leaders were outraged by these demands. Admiral Corvin shouted at his advisors that humans were using blackmail and should be forced back to their previous position. Chancellor Vex Tar declared that no species should be allowed to hold the galaxy hostage, but as their worlds continued falling apart without human support, reality began to set in. The proud Draconian Empire was rationing food while their mighty warship sat broken in space. The advanced Altarian civilization was losing power as their cities went dark one by one. The Zephyrian hive worlds had descended into chaos as their communication networks remained broken. The Nephros gas cities were still lost in space, unable to navigate safely between stars. Within 2 weeks, the first formal apology arrived. The Altarians were facing complete civilizational collapse as their quantum crystal supplies ran out. Chancellor Vex Tar swallowed his pride and sent a message acknowledging that Altarians had failed to properly respect human contributions to galactic society. The Draconians followed 3 days later, as starvation riots began on several worlds. Admiral Corvin publicly admitted that his people had taken human friendship for granted and promised to treat humans as honored equals in the future. The Zephyrians apologized through their collective hive mind, acknowledging that they had underestimated human intelligence and independence. The Nephros gas beings flickered their apologies in beautiful light patterns that could be seen across several star systems. One by one, every major alien civilization formally recognized their mistakes and requested new negotiations with humanity based on complete equality. The process took 6 months of careful diplomacy as human representatives emerged from their hidden locations to meet with alien delegators. The negotiations were conducted on neutral space, stations with human security forces providing protection. Ambassador Tae Min Kim led the human delegation with the same calm professionalism he had always shown. But now the aliens treated his words with deep respect, instead of casual dismissal. Every human proposal was carefully considered and no human concern was ignored. The new galactic agreements gave humanity equal status in all council decisions. Human colonies received the same military protection as any alien world human traders, enjoyed the same privileges as alien merchants, and human scientists gained access to every research project. Most importantly, the treaties recognized humanity as a fully independent civilization with the right to make its own choices about participation in galactic affairs. The other species finally understood that human cooperation was a gift to be appreciated, not a service to be expected. Within a year of the new agreements, galactic civilization was functioning better than it ever had before. The economic system stabilized with fair trade policies. Military cooperation improved with human technical support, and diplomatic relations became more honest as species learned to respect each other. On Earth, in the presidential office that had been hidden beneath Sol President Hai Jin Park smiled as she signed the final treaty documents. The galaxy had learned a painful but necessary lesson about taking valuable allies for granted. Sometimes you have to leave the table to show them how much they need you at it, General Dongwu Li had said during the planning stages, and he had been completely right. Humanity had achieved something unprecedented in galactic history, complete equality through strategic withdrawal. The species, that had been underestimated for 50 years, had proven that being dismissed by others could be the greatest advantage of all. The galaxy would never again forget the price of respect.